Today, we shall be learning how to determine standard deviation for a group data. Let's take a look at this question. Given the table below, we are to determine the standard deviation for these data. To be able to do that, we must first remember what the formula for standard deviation is. The formula for standard deviation is SD, that is the standard deviation, is equals to the square root of summation FD square divided by summation F, where D is equals to X, that is each value minus the mean value. That is, you are going to be subtracting mean value from each of the value in the given set. But for this is a group data, so to be able to determine it, we have prepared this table. Remember, we will need the mean, and the formula for mean, that is our mean, X bar is equals to the summation Fx divided by the summation F. So to do that, we have prepared this. How do we determine the X for a group data, that is the mean value? To determine the X is equals to, we are going to add the lower limit plus the upper limit and divide it by 2 for each of the class intervals. That is, for the first one is 5 plus 9 divided by 2. And that gives us 14 divided by 2, that's 7. We are going to do this for all the class, which I believe that now that you know it, you can do it for everything. So for this one, we have it to be 7, and this is going to be 12. For this, 17. For this, 22. And for this, 27. So what is the total sum of our frequency? If we then add this together, we will know the total sum of our frequency. 4 plus 3 plus 6 plus 5 plus 2. That sum up to be 20. 2, 0. 2, 0. That is the sum of the frequency. Now, let's move on to the Fx. 7 multiplied by 4, that is 28. 3 multiplied by this, that is, what do you say? 36. This one multiplied by 17, that is 6 multiplied by 17. We can say 6 times 7, that's then 102. 5 multiplied by 22, that is 110. Then 2 multiplied by 27. Having this here, that is 4, then 5. Now we know this. So we can move on to determine the D. But before we can determine the D, we need to determine the mean. To determine the mean, we have to sum up all these values together. This plus this plus this plus this plus this. Okay, that will give us X bar is equals to 330 all divided by, okay, let me write it here first, 330 all divided by 20. If we do that, our mean value X will then be, this one goes here, leaving us with this. 2 can go in 32, that's 16, remainder 1, that's 16.5. 16.5. So 16.5 is the value of our mean. Interesting. Now that we've gotten the mean, we need to move on to determine the deviation. Recall, we have said the deviation D, okay, it has been written here, the deviation D is X minus X bar. So we have to begin to subtract our mean from each of the value of X along this line. Let's take notes. So to do that here, subtract 16.5 from 7. That is 7 minus 16.5. That gives us 9.5, right? Minus. It's going to take negative sign, 9.5. So let me use my as 9.5. Then the next thing, for 12, when you subtract, that is 12 minus 16.5. When you first subtract this from 12, that will give you minus 4, minus 4.5. Do the same thing for 17. That one is going to be to the positive side, 0.5. Do the same thing for 22. To be easy, just add 5 to what this one has given you. That's 5.5. And for this one, add extra 5, 10.5. That only works for this value because of the nature of it, which I believe that you can use your calculator to work out things in that way. Now that this has been determined, we can now go for the value of d squared. That is, we begin to square each of these deviations. To make it fast, I have my calculator, which you, the viewer, can also make use of calculator, because when it comes to statistics, we can't be too sure. If there is any mistake, it drags us back. And that is if we realize the mistake on time. Okay, d square, you know, when you square negative number, it will definitely give you positive answer. So don't bother about the negative here. Just go by 9.5 square. What would that give us? 90.25. 90.25. Then we move on. 4.5 square. 20.25. Again, 0.5 square. That will give us 0.25. 5.5 square. That gives us 30.25. Then the last one, 10.5 square. That gives us 110.25. Now that this has been determined, we can then move on and say we need to determine FD square. We have gotten the D square just to multiply it by this FD. All right, so we are going to begin to multiply the frequency with the square of the deviation. To do that, let's start. We can use our own calculator at home so that we can be very sure. You know, this is statistics. If there is any mistake in our calculation, it will send us back. That is if we realize on time. Okay, so we can say 4 multiplied by 90.25. That gives us 361. Do the same. 3 multiplied by 20.25. 3 times 20.25. That gives us 60.75. When we multiply this, 0.25 by 6. 0.25 times 6. That gives us 1.5. 1.5. Then for the next one, 30.25 multiplied by 5. That gives us 151.25. And the last part, where we are going to multiply 2 by 110.25. That is 2 times 110.25. That gives us 220.5. Now that this is done, we then determine the total sum of FD square. Using our calculator, we can begin to add 361 plus 60.75 plus 1.5 plus 151.25 plus 220.5. So what do you get? My own answer is 795. I want to believe that we are on the same page if you are following up. Thank you. So moving on to determine the value of this standard deviation, now that we know the summation f d squared, we can then come here to say our standard deviation, because that's the main purpose of this question, to determine the standard deviation of this data. Our standard deviation is the square root of 795 divided by 20. That gives us square root of, 795 divided by 20. That is 39.75. If you find the square root of this, that gives us 6.304 something, but that may not be needed. That is the standard deviation for this. So therefore, we can say the standard deviation for the given table of data above is 6.30. And we have conclusively determined the standard deviation for this given data. Remember, this is a group data and this is how it is done. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like the video and also subscribe to the channel Demi Academy for more educative video like this. See you next time.